Teachers of Reddit, how does it feel when a student accidentally calls you mom or dad? My cousin is a elementary teacher and told me she immediately thinks, oh no, the other kids will mock him, so pity, I guess. I can vouch for this. I forget what grade I was in, but I was young. I accidentally called my teacher mom. The entire class heard it. The teacher laughed it off and made me feel better about the little mess up, but the kids tore me apart for the rest of the day. I've never had a student call me dad by mistake, sometimes in that mocking, okay dad, but students used to call me mom quite often. Context: I'm large bearded man. I always thought it was kind of cute, sweet, like, the associations with mom tend to be quite caring, nurturing. So if that's how my students feel about me, sounds like I'm winning, I guess. You can tell by the number of question marks there that I'm very sure of myself. That's so sweet that you think of it that way. I thought my teachers would be angry. I teach first grade and it happens all the time. They might be asking me a question or something and go, hey mom, I mean, and get a little flustered. I found the best way to keep them from feeling too embarrassed is to play along with a yes, honey, or what do you need, my son, daughter. We get a little laugh and then move on. Last year, all my kiddos really got into it and called me their school mom. And they called each other their school sisters, brothers. It was really super sweet. Or what? This is sweet. I called my teacher dad in grade 5, 11 years old, and he went off his rocker, savaged me. I was belittled in front of my class. F you Mr. Pitts, F you. I think it's super cute and it's not just the kids. I can't figure this one out. I was just a good teaching period actually. My sister has been a teacher for about 4 years and it happened to her for the first time a couple months ago. She called me after class. It finally happened. She pretended like it never happened after he said it though, and she thinks the kids missed it. I think your comment melted my heart. Where is the nearest hospital? I was in 12th grade. My teacher was also my mother. She wasn't answering me as I called, so I said, Mom. I was close to both getting detention and getting grounded. Worth it. Yesterday I had a kid say hey, mama, like she was going to ask me a question, and some kids started snickering. I was like yay to her and you'll know I'm like your school mom, so, to the rest. All the kids laughed together and said you're right, most of my students are with me more than their parents. It's normal to slip up, and I always try to make sure the kids don't feel embarrassed about it. You're the hero we need, but don't deserve. Good on you for defusing the situation so quickly. I remember calling my form tutor mum on like 3 weeks before the end of 6th form. She had been my form tutor since the beginning of high school and just went, you almost made it 7 years without doing that. Still makes me laugh, cringe 7 years later. What is a form tutor? Makes the S a bit kinky but I don't mind. Kindergarten was a blast. Oh no. To comments in and it went this dark? Stam. Well, it's better than being called grandpa. I've my teacher that once. He was 65 years old. Oh same, that's crazy, haha. Not a teacher, but I nannied for multiple families across 4 years. Occasionally they'd call me mommy and I'd correct them. But when they said it in front of their actual parents I felt really embarrassed for some reason. One kid in particular was just visiting the country. Her parents were on a summer business trip and heard through the grapevine I was the one to call if they needed a nanny while they were here. The girl was starved for attention but her parents were too busy with their own thing. And the only attention she got was when she acted up and got yelled at. So I'm this kid's nanny. And she's bored out of her mind, so I spent the next couple of weeks taking her to every kid-friendly place and event I can think of. We were at a museum and suddenly she says, oh mommy, look at this. I chuckle and say something like, I'm not mommy, I'm name. She just sighs and stays. Can you just pretend that you're my mom, please? That broke my heart. This was at least 4 years ago and I still think about that. Holy hell, poor kiddo. Do you have any info on her? How she's doing? I get called mum all the time by my students. They always get flustered and embarrassed but I answer with yes my child, and that lightens the mood. It's a great reminder of how young and innocent my class are. It feels really endearing, honestly. My mother was a teacher for some of my classes, private Catholic K-8. While I never called her mom in class, a few others did. I always looked over at them suspiciously like, where were you when it was time to clean? Homeschool parents get it all the time. I get worried that they've found out the truth. It happens to me all the time because I am a preschool teacher. Sometimes they say teacher mom or something like that. Once I had twin students with two moms ask me, do you want to be our third mom? There's even room for you in the back seat. It's super sweet and warms my heart, of course. For the little ones like that, teachers are their second moms. It's hard for them to separate the caregiving role, but sometimes I explain to them that I'm not mom, but a very special teacher person in their life. Moms do very special things, and adds other adults at home too, that teachers don't do, and I think it's really important to maintain those boundaries and that understanding. Have you ever seen the Vine where the little boy runs up to his big sister and calls her dad and his sister says, do I look like your dad? It feels a lot like that. My kindergartner called his mom by his teacher's name. Mom wasn't thrilled about that. I called my first grade teacher, a normally sullen and stern looking man from Germany, daddy, and watched as it literally melted his soul. He was actually a very nice guy and my parents adored him. He wrote a very sweet note in a book I bought from a book festival at the end of the year for me, because I loved reading and was ahead for my age. You're the best, Mr. W. Still remember you. They're just used so calling out for help from mom and dad when they need help, so I understand that it's not intentionally done, although it is kind of endearing. This is the best post I've ever seen on this subreddit. Your standards are quite low, my young lad. I would like to know what my first grade male teacher thought when I accidentally called him grandma. Probably really shy at first, like, do I really look that old? Then yeah, IDK. Overall just shy. Not a teacher, but I recall the one time one of my classmates called our teacher Mom. We were 9 at the time. Poor kid cried on the spot when he realized his mistake, and the teacher cracked the biggest smile we had ever seen in response to the mistake. She has never smiled that hard ever since. Male teacher, 2nd grade. Not uncommonly I've been called dad, mom, and occasionally grandma. Actually not that big of deal, as we become a child's caregiver for the majority of their day for the majority of the year. The worst that happens is the child is temporarily embarrassed. At that age none of their peers notice or care. It doesn't bother me either. I'd think it depends on the relationship the kid has with their parent. Kid from a shy home doesn't feel good if they call you dad. Otherwise I bet it feels nice, long as you like kids, which is not guaranteed of teachers. It makes me smile. We all did it at least once. Kids usually catch themselves and get embarrassed. Hey dad. Yeah, I usually just smile and drop a quick, no worries, kiddo, what's up? Not a teacher, but I had a teacher who actually encouraged it, and by the end of the year everyone in the class had a title, like we had great uncles, daughters, etc. All from this tiny teacher. She also fed us when we didn't get the chance to eat lunch, and if you were an athlete she'd go to your game. She was a pretty great teacher, more of a mom than half of our moms were. I called my boss dad one time in front of the whole company and everybody sighed and smiled and he was super proud. I love you, Dave. Great boss. Extremely sad. I mostly work with kids who just don't get enough attention or their parents are just alcoholics. I was sitting in the village center once reading a book and a toddler walks up to me and sits down next to me and starts calling me papa. His mom and sisters kept pulling him away and he kept walking back. Sad times in Eastern Europe. I call my boss at work dad all the time, but to be fair that's mostly a RSUAL thing. I called my kindergarten teacher mom one time and she said something like, don't worry, I've been called everything by students, mom, dad, Santa. Not a teacher, but the last time I did this was when I was 15. I pull them aside and whisper only when we're alone, baby, you know what me saying. Inconsequential. I teach high school and it happens frequently enough in all grades. Just a slip of the tongue. Also, having worked for a number of years in a very tough, low says school, it definitely not the worst thing I've been called. I once called a teacher mum and she hugged me so, but luckily I was already unpopular so no one cared. Homeschool parents get it all the time. My mother was my English teacher in 10th grade, so yeah. Not a teacher, but back when I was 9 I accidentally called my teacher mum on more than one occasion. Numerous times I came close to saying it but quickly backpedaled. The first time I actually did say it thankfully wasn't in front of other students, but she raised her arms victoriously and shouted finally. She wasn't a mother herself if I recall correctly, but enjoyed helping and supporting me. What didn't help matters was I seemed to be her favorite student and she was my favorite teacher, so I slipped up more times than I care to admit, and it even became a game between my actual mum and her on how many times I would say it. I accidentally called my high school teacher daddy. His name sounded kinda similar and it was an honest slip of the tongue. He called me daughter for the rest of the day. My friend did this once and I was laughing about it to him. The teacher overheard and said it was sweet that he thinks of her as a parental figure. The good thing was, this teacher was really nice and thoughtful that everyone liked her. I'm a camp counselor during the summer and usually working with kids age 4-7, and the younger ones definitely do it more. Like, I got called daddy a fair amount. Honestly, I thought it was mostly cute and obviously harmless, so it never made me feel weird. I think it's also assuring that there's some level of comfort between you and the kid, I think. How do you feel when I accidentally call you mom? Mom? I have students openly and affectionately call me mom and auntie. I just roll with it. I teach high school. They even have mock fights over whose mom I am. I just laugh with them. No biggie. I often mix up their names, not because I don't know each child, just a brain thing from juggling too many things at once, I think. The wrong words just come out. Then when they laugh at me I say, well, you call me mum sometimes. We have a lot of banter in my classroom. My mum was my teacher for a couple of years. I absolutely used to call her mum in lessons. This was for A level. So we were 17/18 and my friends used to find it hilarious. She, on the other hand, used to find it very annoying because my typical questions during lessons were less about the topic at hand and more about whether I could borrow her car to go out to get lunch, for example. Funny, it felt sweet that they put you in the same category as dad or grandpa. I've been called both and I just laugh. I teach high school, so it doesn't happen for me, but I have had a few students tell me I am the closet thing they have to a father in their life. It's heartbreaking, but I'm glad I can at least be there for them. I called one of my teachers Thura. I immediately claim parental rights and tell the previous parents to pay child support. I did that once or twice when I was a kid. Funny and embarrassing. I teach in kinda. On my first year there was this kid that told me dad way too much, and oh you are so handsome and stuff like that. Turns out that his dad left his son and wife and he saw me like his dad. My heart broke. I hope he is fine and living a happy life. I feel honored because I have made it to the inner circle. I teach in a behavior unit and my students usually are emotionally disturbed or have autism, severe ADHD, and a slew of other diagnoses. For a lot of them connecting to other humans is hard, so for them to feel comfortable enough with me to accidentally call me mom, I call that a win. I always make sure to answer like normal and not call attention to it though. I can remember the embarrassment of calling my teacher mom, and don't want to make it more embarrassing than it is already. I taught high school for 4 years and since I had the same group of students during that time, about half of them started calling me dad. It was weird at first since I was only 22 at the time, but it turned out pretty awesome. Love those kids. I was playing piano in a music class I had that be in Yamaha Mi keyboard system with every kid getting 1 stroke 2. Keyboard and headphones. Can you turn the TV down? Hilarity. The girl had no father in her life and her mother died of cancer in the 7th grade. This was 8th and she was living with grandma. We had a reunion as they were the first class that graduated from the new middle school and she got into a state college and graduated. I was really happy for her. There was another Hispanic first year in the US kid named Eric who walked a mile to school and worked hard. Teaching sucks, but man, every once in a while a kid makes it totally worth it.